UFC 314 is in the books, one of the best pay-per-view fight cards we've seen in quite a while, one of the best ones of the year. We're going to go through the main card, top, bottom to top, go over what happened, break it down, and look forward to some future matchups for the combatants. And so we're going to go and start with the curtain jerker of the UFC pay-per-view. Dominic Reyes taking on Nikita Krylov. I let you guys down with this one on the bets. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was going to go over 1.5 rounds. I thought Reyes was going to do kind of what he did, pop, 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 keep the distance, use his footwork. Krylov then decided to sprint directly into a pull left hand that Reyes landed perfectly clean on the button, put him to sleep. Incredible performance by Reyes in a short amount of time, only about a 90-ish second fight, give or take. He controlled the distance. Krylov was, I think that time off, he hadn't fought since 2023, I believe. You see, he's a little bit antsy, a little bit reckless, like he tends to always be very aggressive and go forward. The jumping kicks, the spinning stuff, etc. I think this time it got him caught against Reyes, led with the chin out, ran straight into it. Awesome job by Reyes, who continues to. He's not just back, he is better. He's back better and moving forward, pushing for another opportunity to fight for a title. For Reyes, I think that's exactly what we're going to look for him. The next matchup for him, Jamahal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. I want him to fight the winner of that one, while Alex Pereira and Ankalaev take care of their business later this summer. You got Yuri and Carlos Ulberg. They could figure out who's going to fight next between those two. Then after that, he could fight the winner of Jamahal Hill and Khalil Roundtree Jr. could fight Dominic Reyes, and the winner of that one can move forward. Keep a little bit of momentum going. Keep this division healthy and flowing forward. Try to avoid the Pereira-Ankalaev rematch. Even if Pereira wins, have Ankalaev fight a number one contender fight in the meantime. I get it. Pereira has the title defenses, the immediate rematch, etc. But we don't need to then have an immediate rematch from there. And then after that, for Nikita Krylov, the downside about light heavyweight is there's outside of the top 5, 6, 7, it's kind of a wasteland a little bit. He's already beat Volkanovski. Johnny Walker's there. It's a very interesting. I think him fighting the loser of Roundtree and Jamahal Hill also makes a lot of sense. Or even Alexander Rakic. Those are kind of guys to keep him not falling too far down. You don't want to necessarily have him plummet out of the rankings, but keep him kind of in that mix because he's always a contender to be a contender, if that makes sense. So I think you don't need him to fight an unranked guy or have him drop to the bottom of the top 15. Have him fight maybe Rakic or the loser of Jamahal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, just to keep everything active and keep the division moving. Once again, an incredible performance by Reyes, showing that athleticism has not waned, even after a very rough stretch. A lot of those losses, some devastating knockout losses, he's still got it. Wasn't gun-shy when Nikita was throwing bombs either. He wasn't scared or tentative. He was doing his thing. So big win by Reyes, who I think if he fights the winner of Jamahal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, could maybe propel him into a title shot after that as those top 4 work itself out. Next, we're going to get into 4 out of the next 5. We're going to have a nice little featherweight showcase here, but we're going to start with Bryce Mitchell taking on Gene Silva. And you know what? The odds makers did it again. In this fight, for the bets, we did say that Gene Silva was going to not Gene Silva. We said that the fight was not going to go to decision, so we did hit on that. Gene Silva was a big favorite, I think plus 200, and Bryce Mitchell was like 160, something along those lines, which was surprising with Bryce Mitchell being ranked. And you know what? They were spot on with it. Gene Silva controlled this fight basically pillar to post. He was stronger. He was faster. He hit harder. Bryce had trouble touching him. He'd flick some of the kicks out, a couple of small punches would land. He'd have some really flash moments, but they didn't have consequences. He wasn't punishing Silva when he was landing. Like, he wasn't connecting with authority, if that makes sense. He was touching him. It just wasn't in high volume because Gene Silva was controlling the grappling exchanges. When they got in tight, he was using the underhooks, flicking Bryce around. He had full control, basically pillar to post. Landed some devastating shots, knocked him down, and then almost submitted him 3 times before finally getting that choke in the second round to get him the win. Insane performance by Silva. And for Mitchell, kind of a disaster considering everything leading up to it. I know he's going to be fine. He probably doesn't hear any of the noise, but just everything surrounding that makes it a very, very tough loss for him moving forward for sure. Looking at Gene Silva, that's going to propel him into the top 15. I imagine he's going to take Bryce's spot at 13 or 12. Depending on how much Dan Ige moves up as well, who's at 15. A fight I really like for Gene Silva. Obviously, there's been a little bit of talk. Maybe him versus Yair Rodriguez was one, which we'll talk about Yair a little bit later too. I got a better matchup for him. So what I want to see for him is I want to give him someone in the top 10, but kind of in that 7, 8, 9 range. I mentioned Aljamain on Twitter, but looking back on it now, I really like him taking on Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy, a big win over Josh Emmett recently. I think this is a very good. Gene Silva's ultra aggressive, always pushing forward, very heavy-handed, dire consequences. Lerone Murphy's kind of like Leon Edwards, very technically sound, moves a lot, touch, move, slide, doesn't get hit a lot. It'd be a nice clash of styles, and if Lerone Murphy wants to propel himself up there, he needs a chance at a big statement win. which Gene Silva has a ton of hype behind him now. Like, that is a very, what he did to Bryce Mitchell put him on the map. Everything leading up to that fight, he is a household name that Murphy could use a win like that moving forward. And for Silva, this gives him a chance. If you can close the distance on Murphy, something that even Josh Emmett couldn't do, and do what Gene Silva has been doing, that's a big win that probably sets him up for a potential number one contender fight even after that. So this is a contender for a number one contender fight, if you will. And then as far as Bryce Mitchell goes, this one's tough. Sitting at 13, he's going to go down as as Silva comes up. Dan Ige is also going to climb up because he had a big win as well. He might drop out of the top 15, so I don't know if there's anyone in the top 15 you want to match him up with. Knowing the UFC and knowing if they are still mad at him, depending on how things are behind the scenes, if there's still some frustrations, maybe they give him Josh Emmett too, just to be cruel and unusual at this point. That feels like it's not out of the possibility. But I think him fighting someone outside the top 15 would be good, just to get his bearings back on, get a couple of wins, then climb back up. Because it's been a rough couple of fights there for him. I know he had the Kron Gracie knockout in the meantime, which was great, but give him a little bit of time, give him some chance to build himself back up. Sticking to featherweight now, we're going to the showcase fight on the main card. Yair Rodriguez taking on Patricio Pitbull, and there's levels to this, which they kept saying on repeat, which I don't think that's a tough fight for Pitbull. I complained about when it looked like it was going to be Movsar Evloev versus Aaron Pico in his debut fight. Like, that's just ridiculous when someone's coming in like that. I don't care how much hype they have. Give them someone that's not in the top 5 with so many UFC fights. Give them someone, if it's in the top 10, maybe someone with less fights. I think it's a very tall order, especially someone like Yair, who's similar to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He's so unique. Those kicks are so dynamic. His footwork's incredible. His speed's outrageous. And on the ground, he's a submission artist on top of it. He's just really hard to fight. And then you saw the height discrepancy. Like, Yair looked almost a weight class bigger than Pitbull at certain points. So Yair controlled the majority of the fight the entire way, but basically cruised to a victory. Patricio Pitbull, I think he's not out of it. I think he's still definitely, there are some good fights for him. For Yair Rodriguez, we're going to talk about his later, but Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez, Guadalajara, Mexico. It's obvious it's already sold at this point. They're back and forth at the press conference. It was all but set up at this point. Like, no need to go either further into that one. We'll talk about it a little bit later too. Patricio Pitbull, you know what? Him and Aaron Pico might not be a bad, fun fight there. Aaron Pico was set to jump in the deep end. You know what that fight didn't materialize? He's coming to the UFC, highly touted prospect. He had a couple of knockout losses that really took the steam out of it, but he's still a legit boxer, a legit wrestler, a really good athletic fighter. Him and Patricio Pitbull could be a nice little, I think that's a good welcome to the UFC fight for him without going too outrageously deep into the ranking. So that's a matchup I'd love to see. Next up, the co-main event, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett taking on Michael Chandler. And you know what? Michael Chandler might be washed. I'd hate to say washed, actually. That's a bad choice of words. I don't like to insult when I'm talking about this, but the Michael Chandler that entered the UFC, that put on that spectacular knockout against Dan Hooker, took Charles Oliveira to the brink, the battle royales with Justin and Dustin. Even that second fight with Charles, he had his moment in the 5th round, but the Tony Ferguson knockout, like, that guy might be gone. Those 2 years off waiting for the Conor fight did not help him. He's as a fighter, it depends so much on his strength and explosiveness and his power. In these lower weight classes, as you get older, that explosiveness, that strength, it mitigates a little bit. He still is the most ripped-looking Greek god physique in the division, arguably. But he just doesn't quite have the same pop. You can see when he was hitting Paddy was able to absorb it and keep pushing forward. His speed, he's still fast and athletic, is just not quite to that same extent. He's still the overhand right, left hook power wrestler. Someone like Paddy, who is evolving, was able to stifle that. We saw pulverized and basically pillar to post most of the fight to get an easy win. For Paddy the Baddy, there's some really good fights here. He's gonna climb up into that top. He's gonna climb up into that top 10 at light heavyweight. I believe he's gonna maybe take Chandler's spot at 7, not light heavyweight, lightweight. Excuse me. I think he's gonna take Chandler's spot at around 7. If Max Holloway is still sticking around, I like the idea of him and Max Holloway. A big name, Holloway, for him, he gets to come in with somebody, a unique style, but not necessarily one of those killers in the top 3 or 4. And then for Pimblett, this is a chance. You beat Max Holloway, you're getting a title shot after that one. It's good for both because Holloway gets that win. He's coming off that knockout over Gaethje. It's been a long time, though. So this gets him back in the division. It's like, oh, yeah, that's why you're ranked number 4. Okay, you're right in the title shot picture there as well. So that's a good matchup. Also, Justin Gaethje, depending on what they want to do with him as well. Him and Paddy's a good one there, but I like the idea of Max Holloway and Paddy Pimblett, a streaking contender. versus an established old guard who at lightweight has looked very, very good. So I want to see what Max Holloway looks like as a full-time lightweight now. As for Michael Chandler, this is a rough loss from him. As we mentioned, he's been so exciting in the UFC with those fights, but he's often coming out on the wrong end of it. This has taken him out of the top 10. I think he's going to drop to around 11. Maybe Ignacio Bahamadis. I think that might be a good one just to give it. He's almost a gatekeeper to the top 10 at this point. There's not too many ways around it. Maybe you give him like Benoit St. Denis, Grant Dawson, Rafael Fiziev, one of those guys. But I think giving Ignacio a chance to make that jump. 15 versus 12, it makes sense. It's still a good fight. You put it on a pay-per-view, not a co-main event anymore necessarily, but you put him in like that third or fourth fight area. I think he still can draw a lot of eyes and is a really good pack up a pay-per-view card. Now to the main event. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, and Alexander Volkanovski was able to turn back the clock. I did not think he was going to be able to do it just because history has showed us usually in those lower weight classes, once you hit that 34, 35-ish mark, it starts to go downhill, especially someone like him who's pop, a lot of movement, a lot of athleticness, a very strong fight IQ, which I think was the difference here. His ability to control that distance, move his head, get in a little bit of the slugfest with Lopez, but not stay too long, where Lopez could give him those dire consequences. His ability to move in like a snake. It's very much like a cobra. He strikes and he's out. He strikes and he's out. It makes up for that huge weight reach disadvantage he usually has and length disadvantage. For Volkanovski, though, I think it's a relatively easy fight to make. Him versus Movsar Evelev. That's the guy right now. Max Holloway's at number 2. He just fought Diego at 3, and Ilya just vacated. Next in line is Movsar. Yair needs another win, which him and Diego Lopez, Guadalajara, Mexico, already mentioned earlier. They got the beef. It's 3 versus 5, maybe even it could even be like 3 versus 4, 2 versus 3, depending on how the rankings shake out after this. Both very long, very aggressive style from Diego Lopez, extremely versatile counter striker for Yair. That could be a main event if it's a fight night in Guadalajara. Could be a very good pay-per-view, like either co-main or like the main card on the main fight on the main card. Volkanovski main event versus Movsar, even a co-main event on maybe a larger fight card later on in the year. That just makes all the sense in the world. Movsar is undefeated. He shouldn't have to fight anyone. He should get the title shot. Volk is if the UFC doesn't like Movsar, which is my assumption by the fact that they tried to make him an Aaron Pico matchup, they're trying to do anything to keep that title shot delayed a bit. Volk is the ultimate type of fighter when he's on his game to make it difficult for Movsar. And if Movsar can implement his game, that could be something to stifle. It's a very interesting contrast of styles. It's like in a Rubik's Cube is which one's going to spin it just right on fight night. But this was an awesome fight card. One of my favorites so far of the year and one of my favorites on the schedule so far. Top to bottom, incredible fights. It's like a featherweight showcase. And I think that's part of the reason it popped so well. But this is what I have for the recap of the fights and who I would like to see these guys fight next. Let us know in the comments down below who you want to see these guys fight next and what your thoughts are on the fight card overall. For the bets we sent out on X beforehand, we finished 3-5. We needed a Lopez win, and we needed Reyes and Krylov to go over 1.5 rounds. But the other 3 in the middle, the Mitchell and Silva not going to a decision, the Yair and Pitbull over 2.5, and then the Patty money line all hit. So we're sitting pretty solid on the year with UFC main card pay-per-view bets. I believe that puts us at 12 out of 15 total. So definitely be sure to follow us for more UFC bets and breakdowns. Hit the subscribe button down below, and we will see you all again next time.